Ahoy folks, Craig signing in for Pure Xbox, and yes, you did read the title correctly. Thanks to some lovely people at Ubisoft, I managed to play a lot of Assassin's Creed Mirage, so I'm gonna tell you about it. Ubisoft held a remote preview event for Assassin's Creed Mirage. I was invited to that preview event. I played roughly 4 hours of the game, and by the end of it, I was actually told that all the other creators had packed up their bags and metaphorically gone home because I was the last one to finish. Besides the playtesters and the devs, I've actually played the most of Assassin's Creed Mirage. I will be getting into some of the story spoilers for Mirage. It's just worth mentioning that now, in case you want to go in completely clean slate, know nothing. The preview is split into 3 sections. There was an early game introduction, there was a training event kind of segment of the game, and then there was also a free roam assassination. It's worth mentioning that I actually haven't enjoyed an Assassin's Creed game since 2010's Brotherhood, but Mirage is going back to its roots. It's a much more condensed story, and also you can pet cats, so I think I'm back in. The first section of the preview was your typical early game tutorial bits and bobs. I learned how to parkour like the best boss Michael Scott. I got to try out the new movement additions like corner swings, these large poles that you can throw yourself into and swing across rivers and stuff, and then all of the normal climbing, jumping, and whatnot. You know, the new additions fit in perfectly. We just know what we expect at this point, don't we? Occasionally, I jump into a wall and get stuck, but I think that was more of an ish me rather than an ish you, you know? So we're introduced to Basim, Mirage's protagonist, who feels like a cheeky chappy. He's not like a wisecracker, but he's more confident in his abilities, and he's just eager to show that off. As a game's main protagonist, Basim doesn't really grate on me all that much, so that's a win. So I spent maybe the first 15-20 minutes of my playtime exploring the dusty streets of Anbar with Basim's best chum, who gave us this like grand tour of this lovely little section of Baghdad, whilst bantering with Basim about his noble ambitions and his desire to join the Hidden Ones. I spent some time in the market trying out the new Eagle Vision whilst learning how to successfully pickpocket a merchant or two, which, you know, in classic Craig style, I straight up ignored the instructions, failed miserably, so I had to hide in a haystack until the guards just, you know, pitied me enough to leave me alone. I was genuinely tempted to ask the demoist to restart my playthrough so I could do it again because I was just embarrassed, so embarrassed. Once it felt like I got to grips with the controls, the game wanted me to try out stealth for the first time. I had to sneak past some guards, knock a couple of them out, and steal a ledger for Basim's thief boss, Derwish. It was here that I had my first gripe with the game. It's a minor gripe, but still a gripe. Basim would occasionally talk to himself with his classic, "I don't want to be seen by guards, do I? Whoever is out there listening, I don't know, but I mean, if I can hear you, then surely the guard that stood 2 feet in front of you can also hear you talking smack." I zipped about using bushes and taller buildings for cover, using Eagle Vision to identify the guard that has a key to unlock the door I needed to get into, whistling to lure guards towards Basim's one-punch KOs until I claimed the ledger and realized just how fun it is to throw people in this game. I've never felt as much joy as I did hurling an unconscious guard into the murky waters for the first time. Like, I'm sure he survived. I'm not going to go back and check, but I'm sure he's fine. At the end of this section of the preview, Basim returns to Derwish, and we catch our first glimpse of a hidden one. Roshan's deep and raspy voice was instantly recognizable as one of the big-time actors from Amazon's The Expanse, and I've got to say, up until this point, pretty much every character that I'd met felt really, really forgettable. So it was refreshing to meet Roshan. At this point, Basim shoots his shot to join the Hidden Ones, and uh-oh, spoiler alert, the demoist boots up the next segment of the game, which, lo and behold, our boy Basim is now in training to become part of the Assassin's Creed, which just so happens to be the name of the game. Clearly, we've jumped forward in time and we're in a new area. This is in and around the fortress of Alamet. which is the home of the assassins in Mirage. This is where Basim undergoes his assassin training. It doesn't take long for us to attempt our first leap of faith, which, once I'd hit the haystack, I felt like I didn't want to follow Roshan. I just wanted to fully invest in all of the assassin stuff. I wanted to go for the leap of faith again. I wanted to slice people and stab them. It felt a bit slow-paced at this point, which is funny because technically I just skipped forward in time, so maybe it will feel different when you play the game fully. It's here through conversations with Roshan and a few other NPCs scattered around the exploration area that we learn that the group known as the Order are a big bad organization, and it's up to the assassins to, you know, stab them, make them dead. Kapooey. They're the antagonists. But it was in this area around Alamut that it felt quite condensed. It was like I was being pushed down a hallway, but it wasn't bad. I do enjoy these more linear, condensed moments, especially in wide open RPGs, so it was refreshing. The main hub had a decent verticality to it, with plenty of ladders to climb, ledges to leap from, and haystacks to dive into. It was also here that we were introduced to Enkidu, who's our aviary bird pal, who can, in the later section of the preview, could scout locations, find chests and key items, and tag enemies from above. We've had this before in older Assassin's Creed games, but it's just really nice to have it continue because Enkidu just proved to be super useful and a feature that I was happy to see move forward. It was here that we fall into one of the RPG gameplay traps, the dreaded fetch quest. Gathering up some leather strips to help forge Basim's new weapons, it doesn't take long, but whenever I see the go here and touch this, then come back, my eyes just roll to the back of my head. I don't hate it, I accept it, I shall fetch. I will say though that the dialogue between some of the NPCs and Basim felt really rigid, and I noticed it, which kind of took me out of the experience for a short second or two, but once I claimed my new sword and a throwing knife, it quickly jumped me back into the game, so it's all good. We did a little toss-in, daggers at bags, the usual tutorial try it out moment by a lovely waterfall, and then we moved on. I made my way to the top of Alamut's outskirts on my way to the training ground, and I did enjoy stopping from time to time to take in the sense of height that I was getting, because I just think that Assassin's Creed is pretty good at making you feel high up. It was pretty to look at. Everything up to the training ground combat tutorial with Master Roshan felt quite handholdy, which if you're new to the series with Mirage, makes sense. It's always best to learn how to play before you're thrown into a big open space with all the gear, but no idea. But for those who understand how the game works, veterans to the franchise, they'll know what they're in for, so it does drag a little bit. I mean, it's fun, but it's just slow going. Combat is quite familiar too. Press RB to perform a light attack, hold RB in to throw a slower, heavier attack which deals more damage but leaves you more vulnerable. LB to parry incoming attacks when your enemy flashes white. This would then break their guard, restore your stamina a bit, and opens them up to attack. You can't, however, parry red flash attacks. You'll have to use your dodge using X, and it just creates an interesting dynamic. Sparring with Roshan was actually quite a cool experience. It was nice to have a low sun glisten off some puddles as I slice up my mentor. All good stuff, really. You can also lock onto a target by clicking in the right thumbstick, which did end up being one of my least favorite features. It's essential for combat, but at times, especially in larger groups, switching between enemies felt a bit clunky and awkward. I mean, again, it's not awful, but there's definitely room to improve the finesse of it. Now, the end of the second segment of the preview sees Basim take on some baddies in real life or death combat. He then passes on information that these mercs that he fought were from Baghdad, and in doing so, he proves himself, and we get to participate in this really cool initiation sequence, which I'm not allowed to talk about, and to be honest, it's kind of a good idea because it's definitely something you want to experience yourself. In the third and final section of the preview, I was loaded up into the circular city of Baghdad, which was genuinely really spectacular. The synchronization moment revealing the surrounding area was quite flashy, and I found myself excited to take all that I've learned from the previous two sections into this vibrant and open city. This is where I spent 3 hours of my time, the biggest part of the preview, and I experienced a good amount of freedom here. Basim is tasked with the assassination of a target of the Order, and I had to make my way through the city, gathering clues and items, which ultimately led me to a confrontation with this person. First glance at the map, I thought, damn, for a game that's scaling back its map and its open worldness, this is still a fairly large play space. The busyness of the streets with hundreds of people, the sheer amount of climbable structures and traversal options, they all do a good job of really fleshing out the city. The supposed completion time for Mirage, I think, is between 25 and 30 hours, which is a much shorter game. But I think personally, it's gonna hit a sweet spot for a lot of people. I know I find 20 to 30 hours much more palatable than 100 plus. There's just too many new games coming out, and I end up dropping the bigger, lengthier games for the next, more exciting new game. It was during this final section that the demoist helping me said that I'd spent the most time playing with animals and chucking dead bodies around, which it might seem stupid and trivial, but it made me enjoy the game so much more. It catered towards the silly, more distractible folks like myself, and the demoist also said that out of everybody who's ever played Mirage, at least that they've seen, I played the most like a playtester, which I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but it means that I played it differently to all the other creators out there, which, you know, I was riding camels around the city, finally mugging people on a regular basis, helping a young boy perform his first leap into faith, of course, throwing plenty of bodies into the ocean. Oh, and also releasing a wild cougar into the streets, which is all just regular Craig stuff, if I'm being honest. As I made my way through the city, I started to meet more plot characters, like Kong, who's a sly trader looking to expand his trade. There's clearly a history between Basim and Kong, but it's characters like Kong who were much more memorable than the early folks that Basim hung around with. It kind of makes me think that the start of Mirage is much weaker than the later stages, so perhaps keep that in mind if you're worried if you'll like the game or not. Or perhaps if you're not gelling with it at first, you might give it more time, because I did enjoy the later stages. Gathering information is key to understanding and even revealing your targets, so I found myself heading into strongholds full of guards, whom if you attack head on, absolutely wipe the floor with you. I'm not even playing. Do not think that you can just be able to beat every single guard. Whilst it can happen, it's just hard, and Mirage lets you feel that, which is clever because it urges you towards the way it's supposed to be played, stealthy and calculated. After a few failures, I managed to sneak into a warehouse with the help of my bird pal and eagle vision to locate what I needed to collect in order to progress. I did find locating these items that I was looking for quite difficult, like it wasn't clear enough when I was using Basim's eagle vision, but once I got the hang of it, it was good going. Before we're allowed to assassinate the big fish of the Order, we'll have to work our way through the smaller fish first. I rocked up to another stronghold with a mini boss, and I used a new assassination skill here. It's like an assassination gauge which can be filled up with successful stealth kills to mark multiple targets for quick kills. The animation was really very animus-y and like I was glitching in a way that I shouldn't, which either way, it looked really smart. I'd like to claim that I killed the Harbor Master exactly how I planned, but instead I got spotted slinking around, tried to escape, ended up running right into his face and had to act there and then. You know, proper assassin-like. Lucky for me, the environment is interactable. The Harbor Master just smacked something he shouldn't have, big bag of dust or something, which dazed him. I slipped in my blade, and I called it a day. Killing this smaller mini-boss revealed more information on how I get to the big bads of the Order. So now that I know where I need to be and where to go, it's here that things begin to get really interesting. Once you begin a mission to assassinate a member of the Order, it turns Assassin's Creed Mirage into something similar to the Hitman games. I would walk around a stronghold of sorts, in this case a hustling bazaar full of merchants and guards. Basim would need to investigate sources like our pal Kong, who just so happens to be there as well, or listen in on conversations and steal items to plan his course of action. It felt really considered and intentional. Like, one detail I'll share about this mission is that there's a moment during an auction where Basim wants to win an item, but if you don't have enough money to bid on it, then you'll need to track down the person who did win it and steal it from them, which is just really cool sandboxy stuff. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of the mission, so I'm purposely keeping it brief. But as someone who's fallen out of favor with the Assassin's Creed franchise because it felt like they were a bit hollow and lifeless, Mirage is genuinely a good time. The condensed nature of the city and the push to play this game stealthy and use your abilities to get the best outcome, the Hitman style assassination mission, all really feel intentional and a much better direction for a series that definitely needs a shakeup. I hope you enjoyed my kind of surface level play-by-play of my time with Assassin's Creed Mirage, and if this at all helps you figure out whether or not you want to pick it up or not, then that's great. I'll leave you with a cat cuddle, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.